The Dungeon Master has an important job at the table to keep the game running. However, like any operation, event, or machine with a goal to be had, a productive and fun game is not possible by the actions of just one. It takes a table, and that means you, the player, have a responsibility as well. Let's break down some of the key ways you can uphold your end of the bargain to encourage a truly great game experience for the whole table. Welcome back to the table. My name's Dylan, the Tabletop Tinker, and I'm excited to help you improve your game by going over some basic tenets you can follow that will improve every single table you find yourself at moving forward. I want to help increase the amount of fun and enjoyment for as many different tables as I can reach, and liking the videos and subscribing to the channel really helps spread these ideas and conversations to more people. Ideas such as my first tip, which is staying alive. Well, that one seems pretty obvious, but how much do you actually think about it and actively consider it at the table? You have likely only considered the initial impact of if your character dies, you can no longer play this character and experience that story, but its immediate impact goes much further. If you go down, resources have to be spent to get you back up before you do die, so avoiding even the possibility instantly becomes much more important, as most TTRPGs are a matter of resource management, and the less you have to use less often likely means a better chance at successful completion of goals. But should you in fact cross that line and die, the most likely scenario for this to happen in is combat. Here's where the game is most lethal to your character. The obstacle you are currently facing is probably actively trying to kill your character, or at least apprehend them or defend against them using methods that could prove lethal. By playing an active role in combat, you are directly affecting the balance of the encounter. When you go down, or even worse, outright die without the ability to bring you back up right then and there, you are by definition no longer participating in that balance, meaning it has shifted away from your party and to the favor of the opposing force, directly increasing the likelihood of other members of the party falling as well. Even if they do become overwhelmed, realize it, and retreat before there are any more casualties, the goal the combat was meant to have achieved will likely have failed, and your death is going to play a vital role in that failure. Now, this is not to say that should you lose a character, on top of feeling bad that you have lost this person you have spent time with and actively developed, that you should also feel bad about having failed as a player. That's not what I'm saying at all. That's not what I believe, and not how I think you should feel. Rather, this information should be used when carefully making choices in combat and even character creation to best stay alive and actively participate as your character as long as possible. Their continued presence does not just actively affect your experience, but the experience of the whole table. Also, if you actively have it in your head that it is a truly important mission to keep yourself alive to continue benefiting the rest of the people, or rather characters at the table, if you then reach a conclusion that you must do something which puts that directly at risk, it will truly mean something, and by its very nature will tell a deeper and more meaningful story. And so moving on and pulling back the camera a bit more towards the macro level of interacting with our favorite TTRPGs, how we are behaving outside of the game at the table is just as important as our character choices and actions. The great thing about these games is it can feel like a great outlet for you. You get to make choices for your character. You get to be anyone that you want to be. You get to say and do the things that you want to do. And you get to try out things and have experiences that you never would have otherwise. You are in charge of running an entire character, from knowing how they feel about different things to how they speak and how they would react in different situations. So it can be understandable if at times the experience of the other players at the table go completely overlooked, especially if we are engaging with the story. It is an immersive medium to engage with, and we are seeing them through the lens of their characters. However, I would deeply challenge this notion of self-focus, because if all we are thinking is how our own experience is going, we are spending less or even no time thinking about how our experience and actions are therefore affecting those around us. It doesn't even take extreme lengths for this prospect to hinder or even ruin a game. Break it apart and leave it as a table that would have otherwise been great, and is instead something that was a fleeting session or a group of sessions that has been left to the wayside and off in the past. By focusing instead on the enjoyment of everyone else through our character, by making it a point to interact with everyone else at the table, by allowing others their moment to shine without stepping into their light and otherwise giving the rest of the players room to grow and spread their wings, you can actively enhance the enjoyment of everyone else by the table and how it makes them feel. This manner of conducting yourself at a role-playing table is a self-rewarding method. What it does is increase the net enjoyment felt by the entire group and decreases the likelihood of two conflicting ideas of what is going to be fun, and instead puts the focus of conflict back where it should be, which is on the table with whatever encounter or obstacle the GM or storyteller has placed in front of you this week. Likewise, it then becomes acceptable for you to expect this of everyone else at the table for yourself. So it becomes a basic numbers game. Instead of just you yourself being concerned about your own experience, you now have 4 or more other people actively working towards a collective enjoyable experience with different ways to contribute that is sure to be a much more effective net positive. But to wrap up this workshop, I actually want to go the other direction and address disagreeableness at the table. It may be intuitive that you should be as agreeable as possible. After all, you do not want to argue with the other players and you want to have a good time, and so going along with whatever may be the easy thing to turn to. However, I would put forth that it would actually be better to be cooperative than agreeable. What I mean by this is instead of being just agreeable to the solutions offered by the other players, you should certainly be working towards the same goals that the solutions could provide. However, what will inevitably happen if everyone is in agreement all the time about what to do in every scenario, one person will become the de facto decision maker of the group, who is really the only one then playing the game for the majority of the time. And the rest will just be his party members that follow around the game world until combat happens, and then they're really more like AI characters who are controlled by the computer that are the brains of the other players at the table. Rather, it will be much more interesting and engaging if you look for moments of light disagreement. Not things that you dislike about another character's thinking or actions necessarily, but a different perspective that can offer up a discussion and counterpoint to the solutions offered by the other party members. It's even likely that none of you have a really good solution on your own, but pieces of a few solutions put together might just be the thing the doctor ordered. This also encourages growth and development of all the characters at the table, including your own, and creates bonds between them, and is a much more productive method of problem solving than just agreeing with the leader who makes all the decisions. I made sure to bring this up after the last point about empowering other players, because you do not want to argue your case, rather just put it forth, as well as being willing to listen to the case that others make, and being as willing to back off of your point as you were to bring it forth in the first place. Of course, you should also expect this of the other players, and if you are not receiving the same in kind, that is a different problem which requires a conversation between you and those players outside the game. But while we are putting forth our ideas and trying to contribute to how the ship is going to be steered, we want to make sure that we are not the ones becoming the de facto leader and that everybody feels empowered to contribute. These are a few of the things that I think are truly important to keep in mind as a player in any TTRPG system, and it is really agnostic in that it can be applied to any of them where character builds and rules understandings are more specific to that particular system by contrast. The core fundamentals of what makes a table really work and create memorable experiences and lasting friendships are truly universal. What are some of the things that you do that you think make you a truly exceptional player at the table and improves the fun for everyone? I would love to hear about them in the comments below. And that's all I have for you this week. So for now, we're going to close up the shop, and I will see you again when it opens back up. Until then, keep working towards a better game.